Hello everyone and welcome to a new Wano patch and maybe the division of the patch as TKS is so back and we're gonna go into a deck deep dive here talking about why I believe this division is so powerful right now and how I believe you should play it and a couple of tweaks that you could do if you want to slightly switch it up. And before we jump in, a real quick shout out, Wano League Season 6 is starting next Monday. And with the new patch, with the new maps, with the new divisions, there's obviously a lot of excitement going on again. And you can join here, no matter if you're a veteran 1v1 player or new to 1v1 and competitive Wano, as the league does offer it all. It is split into 4 skill levels. No matter which skill level you are, you will have good matches in this. If you're a new player who just wants to play casual and get into tournament action, then Division 4 is there for you. And if you're one of the best players in the world, Division 1 is there for you with some nice prize money as well. So see you all in Season 6. A couple of slots are still open, and you can find the sign up down below. But let's get into TKS because I'm really hyped for this. And we start in the Logistic tab, and the Logistics tab is already pretty good. You get an Iltis Phalanx, that's a good 3 availability CV. You could pay 5 points more for an Overland, but that's not really worth it. It does not really have much to offer over this, so go for the Iltis, as this only can come in the Super Puma, but that's not really worth it. Then you get the good supply cards, though. You get a Unimog, you get a for infantry resupply, you get a CH-3 for fast resupply for tanks or artillery when you really need it, and you get a man cut 6x6, which is fantastic to resupply artillery. So really good options here. 3 cards means that you get through the game pretty easily as well. And in the infantry tab, you get good stuff too. We start with 2 cards of Jägerführer, and that's a nice 10-man leader squad. Comes with smoke grenades, can help you out with this division in some fights, and you get 2 cards here, so that's 7 leaders. No leaders in the tank tab because you need that for other things, so 7 leaders in total in this deck. Green Berets coming in here, and they are the key change to the last patch here, because the Instructor trait now is implemented with them as the first infantry unit that has them, and with that, they buff all infantry around them like a leader, but they can do it additionally to a leader, so a Jägerführer plus a Green Beret buffs an infantry unit by 2 levels of veterancy, and they also remove the reservist trait from units. They can't capture, but they remove the reservist trait. They, so they can be quite nice there. And what they buff here, especially in this deck, are the Heimatjäger and the Reserve Pioneer. Both units that are really cheap because they are reservist. Both of these units, stats-wise, aren't that great on their own because they have the reservist trait. For Pioneers especially, that sucks because you want to get them into CQC and then they get stunned down. Both the reservist, Heimatjägers, actually pretty decent squad. Always have been, but the reservist trait here is pretty annoying. Before you used Feldjäger sometimes with them, but that's all quite expensive, and they still are at 0 vet with the Feldjägers around as well. With the Grim Berets, they lose the reservist, so they get more accuracy on all their weapons, and they also get 1 level of veterancy, and 1 level of veterancy is a big bonus. So you always want to have them around the Green Berets. Green Berets also help them out with the AT problem. Their German infantry, well, they have Kalgu stuff, so yeah, Heimatjägers are actually kind of fine there as well, and they're only 40 points. And if you have a Jägerführer pushing around with them as well, you have 2 vet Heimatjägers for 40 points here. So the big infantry blob of these guys just kind of shreds everything, cost efficiency wise. And Reserve Pioneer can run down enemies nicely as well when they are with the Green Berets, or especially when they have the Jägerführer and the Green Berets for a pretty cheap price point as well. So they are pretty good here as well. And then we also take some Jägers because they give you a little HGM vehicle, and they are pretty good at helping out fighting infantry as well. And then you come with another Milan, with a Milan transport to get a couple more HGMs out there easily in the beginning. Milan 2 could be helpful, but you already get a good couple on the vehicles here out here as well, and I feel like it's more about the cost efficiency in the early stages, and heavy tanks you kind of want to avoid by just pushing faster. And then you have the airmobile, which can reinforce quickly into positions where you feel like you might break through or where you might need them on the defense. And the Apilas, fantastic launcher. One of these guys in a plop of your infantry makes the enemy vehicles a lot weaker around as well. 750-meter range, the quick rate of fire, the 21 pen, all great. Artillery, M110, mwah. Absolutely beautiful artillery piece. You could consider taking either the 105 for a bit more range or the Tempala here for some smoke play. But because you have Jägerführer and Green Berets with smoke, you don't necessarily need it for your infantry. You can already smoke with your infantry yourself. So unless you want to do some CV shenanigans, the smoke mortars aren't as necessary in this deck, as your tanks also come with their own smoke. Your M48 comes with smoke as a reservist unit. You don't get a tank on par with the Green Berets here. The tank instructor is in the London division, so the M48s will stay reservist. They don't get the buff from the Green Berets, but the Kanonjagd Panzer and the M48 still relatively cheap and pretty decently efficient little tanks. Kanonjagd Panzer for 40 points gets decent pen, and the extra stealth helps out, making that quite helpful against IFVs and just as a nice little flanker as well. And then we have Fort Deploy Milan 2s with the VLRA, and we have normal Milans with the Iltis Milan, where you could consider taking the Overland A3 Milan instead. But yeah, that's a decent option here as well, if you want to have some more Milan 2s. As I said, you want to push a lot around with your infantry and just want to be able to deal with light vehicles here. I feel like the Iltis Milan might be a bit more helpful here, just being a bit cheaper and saturating the front line. But the Milan 2 here is an absolute option as well, especially if you fight in a tournament and you know the enemy has a couple more heavier units running around. Recon tab is insanely stacked with good units. Yeah, issues, your slots are pretty tight. And one of the units that currently is cut out by me is the Aero Eclair. This unit is really good. It is a 35-point GSR unit. Can come in the Super Puma if you want to get them out quickly. And is in general nice GSR unit, really good optics. Issue is, you want to push with TKS anyway early on, and they don't really help you there. And the other units here are all relatively good combat CVs. The MX-10 RC, great for openers. One of your best vehicles to deal with enemy mid-tier or lighter tanks. So that is pretty important. And you can't cut that. Vulture-Mega B1 is your co-unit to the Green Berets. Even more important in the opener, because first of all, it can spot stuff. Second of all, it is the better combat squad. So, and the Green Berets now also more focused on buffing your infantry around here, so you don't really want to use them as much for combat directly on their own early on. And the Vulture-Mega B1 is better there. And then the BJS, a pretty good combat recon as well. Pretty tanky, so it can be pushed into relatively open spots without dying immediately and soaking up a bit of fire. Good availability as well here, and actually good AT weapon as well. And then the Gazelle Cannon in some openers can be really important to deal with stopping the enemy from getting into specific points and just get some damage out, and can be in the latest parts also nice against some units to just start taking them off and killing off enemy recon infantry or so. So Gazelle Cannon, nice little helpful unit here too. AA gets you a really solid mix-up as well. The VLRA 20mm means that you are impervious to enemy helicopter openers. You can just put one of these guys around if you know the enemy has good helicopters and stop them that way from running over your forward deployment. Really important unit that this comes with forward deployment. Roland 3, good mobile all-rounder against helicopters and planes. And then you get an Eyehawk as your great long-range AA, and the Fliegerfaust just as a cheap little anti-helicopter and support anti-aircraft unit here as well. It's not as essential, but I like to have manpads in my decks. You could go for 20mm, but since the nerf, I feel like it's more important. The Fliegerfaust has good anti-helicopter range, and dealing with helicopters in this deck can be a bit annoying sometimes, so I feel like having some Fliegerfausts here is nice, and that's why I take them here. Helicopters, pretty solid yourself. You have good ATGM helicopters. The Gazelle Hot here coming in is a bit cheaper than the Hot 2. with the veterancy also relatively similar in quality, while still being a bit cheaper, just a bit lower pen though. So those two little helicopters with ATGMs are nice, and the Gazelle Cannon really helpful at dealing with unprotected flanks as well. Not that much cheaper than the Recon variant, but can come with better veterancy while still having decent availability. And that actually makes a lot of difference in the DPS here. So this Gazelle Cannon really helpful as fire support, as it gets great accuracy and rid of air and aim time buffs out of this. So this goes hard. And then the final thing is the fantastic mix of strike aircraft. And one of the ones that you could argue about is the F-104 G80, but I like the threat that it provides with the 30 damage missile. Enemy has to respect it. The F-104 GHE is just an amazing plane. High altitude bomber that comes in quickly and gets out quickly. The F-111F LGB can kill all the big threats. And the Gina rocket comes around and can either oversaturate the enemy air defense for the rest of units, spotting the enemy AA so that your LGB or your HE bombers can get to them, or can strafe down some of the enemy lighter positions so that the rest of units can move through, like a 30mm grenade launcher team or an annoying ATGM team on the side. Gina, pretty good at that. Its 30mm cannons help out too. Can be okay against helicopters with that too. And then the Mirage is just a solid, relatively cost-efficient fighter. F-104 GA a bit too expensive, and the slots just not quite here, as it's not that effective. It has 4 missiles, that is nice. It's 4 assault missiles, but can't really dogfight, and it only has short-range missiles, and it doesn't fire them in tandem and so on. So 130 points here, still fine. And yeah, the Mirage, pretty important, 30% ECM, decent long range here. So that is all good. The Alpha Jets are a decent option as well here in comparison to the F-104 GAT, for example. But I believe the Gina rocket is enough, and you get enough of those light planes. And the AT, as I said, it's still a big threat. The enemy can't just ignore it. Even though it likely is not going to hit, it might hit, and then the enemy has to suffer the dire consequences. So, strength and weaknesses of this deck. Strength, strong forward deployment. It has the AA forward deployment, it has the AMX-10, it has the Fallschirmjäger B1 plus Green Beret. Strength 2, fantastic infantry tab now. So that is pretty big as well. And then strength number 3 is solid support weapons, like good support weapons like the MR10 and the long range AA. That's stuff that you don't get in a airborne division, for example, where you have some forward deployment stuff as well, and where you have good infantry too. But you don't get the long range AA, and you don't get the top level tier artillery there in those decks. So that's why TKS still, in my eyes, is one of the best airborne division counters, because you can go toe to toe for the first 3 minutes of them, and then you can just outnumber and outscale them slightly in the later stages and win the game that way. So that is pretty helpful. And then when we come to weaknesses, the lack of IFVs is big. The lack of any modern the tank is pretty big as well. And even like it's the obvious things, like the lack of APCs here. You don't get any armored personnel carriers really either, that like any wheeled armored personnel carriers, no fast thing with an MG on top, not even Fuchses. So that is an issue too. So all the mechanized and part of the division is really lackluster, and that can be a big issue in Wano still. But the support here is great, and the infantry power, especially now with the new Instructor trait, is actually really impressive. So with that said, let me know below what you think of TKS. We're gonna have a look on some gameplay action in the upcoming days, so if you don't want to miss them, consider subscribing down below. With that said, see you all in the next one. Bye bye, and have a great day.